Hello again. How are you? I hope you're doing well. Let's talk about chapter 3. So this is going to be talking about atoms, molecules, and ions, and this is in your online textbook, remember? And remember, you can get to the table of contents here, and we're going to talk about chapter 3 today. So this is talking about atoms. Atoms, remember, are the elements on the periodic table, and they have specific parts to them that they're going to talk to you about in this chapter. So there's always the opening essay, so look through that. And they're going to talk about atomic theory first. And I have this on my lecture, so make sure you look at the lecture as well and take notes on the lecture. And this is talking about how they figured out the parts, which is really hard labs that they did, investigations, experiments that they did to figure out the parts because they're so small and we can't see them. They had to do things indirectly to figure out the parts of the atom, which was really amazing. So look through how they did it, the theories that we have for the atom, and make sure you know the parts of the atom, how big they are, their charges. This chart is really important. And look and see how historically we figured out the parts of the atom. But the most important thing is the parts, their size, and their charge. And then the location of everything in the atom is important. So remember, the nucleus has the positive protons, the neutral neutrons, and the electrons are on the outside in a cloud. They're moving very quickly on the outside. And so read through this, know this, you're going to start using the periodic table. You don't have to memorize the periodic table, but you'll have to be able to find elements on the periodic table and use the periodic table to find all the information that we need. So you never have to memorize the periodic table. You always have it on quizzes and tests. But get used to the names and the symbols and being start the periodic table, start looking at it and trying to find things on the periodic table will be really important. So they're going to talk to you about the periodic table here. There's some exercises to do to get used to the periodic table, so do those. Remember, these are not the ones that we turn in, but these are really important so you understand the topics as you go along, and there's answers at the end. So they're going to explain the basics of elements and the periodic table. The next thing is talking about molecules. So when elements combine together, they make molecules, and they make chemicals that way. Chemical substances in the form of molecules. So read through what a molecule is. These diatomic molecules are important, so that would be a good thing to write in notes. How they like to be in pairs. That's called a diatomic molecule, excuse me. And then there's some molecules that like to get bigger. And so they're going to talk about bonding and how to name things in this chapter. So chemical bonds, covalent and ionic, are very, very important. This is the whole purpose of chemistry. And then how to name things is just going to make your life so much easier in this class if you start learning the rules for naming. And there'll be a quiz on it in this section. And how we name molecules, it goes through that in this chapter. So please read through that. Very important about how to name things. It just makes your life so much easier. And there's some example problems for you to try with the answer key at the end. So here's the answer key. So go through that. Then we're going to learn how masses work. And so this whole chapter has a lot of really important information for you to learn. This is going to talk to you about masses, how the periodic table is going to show you the mass of one atom all by itself, and that's called, it has a AMU designation right there. And then how that difference from a mole will come up to later. So understand masses, how to figure out the sum of a molecule's mass by adding up the individual atoms' masses. And we'll need to know how to do that. So these examples are really important. Here's masses of individual atoms. And then when we want to find a molecule, we have to add them together. So this example here is really important. Molecular mass. Look at the examples, try them out so you get the idea. Make sure you know what you're doing because we'll be using this all the time this semester and throughout chemistry. So it's a very basic skill we have to have. So try these questions and answers. And then they're going to talk about molecules are bonded elements together in shared bonds. And then they're going to talk about ions where electrons actually move from one atom to another. So know this definition, cation anion, what ionic compounds are. Very important. And here's examples of particular cations, and we'll know a lot of them from the periodic table. So there's some that you need to memorize, and some we're just going to be able to figure out from the periodic table. So some memorizing, some not. So I'll explain how to do that later. Here's example problems. So look through these, try them out, and then we're going to figure out formulas. Formulas are really another important thing. This chapter is full of important things. It's going to explain how to put ions together, a cation and an anion, and form them into a formula. And this is hard for some folks. It takes a while to get used to, so I need you guys to practice this as much as you can to get used to it, because we'll be using it again all semester long, and throughout chemistry you're going to need to know how to do it. So try these example problems. And here is some tests, and try those out. Now this chart here is one of the most important things you're going to need to know this semester, is memorizing this chart. So it depends on how you like to memorize. Some people like to use flashcards. Some people like to, there's a lot of online programs and apps that you can use to memorize these. So look around, find something that works for your brain. Everybody's different. I like to write things down because it goes into my memory well. I'm a visual and kinesthetic person, so the more I do that, the more it goes into my memory. But everybody's different. Maybe you would like to just have somebody quiz you a lot because you're more of a, you like to speak things out, and that helps your brain learn. So please find a way. There's a lot of apps, like I said, online that have these are called polyatomic ions, that have that, so you can test yourself. So find something that works for you. You know your brain the best, so try a way to find a way that works for you, and then practice, practice, practice. It's very important. And they're showing you examples of how these are used in real life. And then here's some more practice problems. So there's plenty of practice for you to do. And then they're going to explain how to name acids and what acids are. Acids are something that gives off an H+ ion in water. And they're going to explain how to name things here. So the objectives of this section are defining what an acid is and naming them. So naming acids is kind of hard for some folks. So take some time on naming this, because we're going to be using all these acids in the laboratory. And so I need you to be able to pick up the right thing when we get to lab, and not pick up the wrong acid and do the wrong thing when we're in lab. So we need to know what these acids are. Some are very strong and can hurt you, and you need to know which one, what name is what formula, so you pick up the right thing in lab. So these are also another thing to memorize as well. Especially we use nitric acid a lot, sulfuric acid, acetic acid is going to be in your last lab where we're going to be testing that. Hydrochloric is very important. So start looking at these and start learning them, because we'll use them in work problems and in lab problems. And here's some example problems and the answers. This is where you're going to find the homework for chapter 3. So this is the end of chapter material. Remember, it's always at the end of every chapter where the homework is. I've given you problems to do, and then always the answers for the odds are at the end, so you can check yourself. Remember, when you turn in homework, you're going to submit it to me, and you need to, if it's a concept thing, you need to really be very explicit in your answer so that I know what you're thinking. Yes or no is probably not going to answer a question, and you need to probably do